we are, Sawmill Studios. What year is it? 2015, is it? God, I'm getting old.
94.
You're getting old.
So, first of all, a big round of applause, please, Mr. John Cornfield, the legend that is.
The legend. Yeah.
I know. I don't know. Do you do many of these interviews? Is this something?
No, I don't.
No?
I'm not accustomed to this sort of stuff.
Okay,
I
so
don't like
take
it
it
much.
easy.
Yeah, take it easy.
We weren't going for the jugular straight away.
No, I'm a bit of an interview virgin, really.
Really? That surprises me.
I avoid them.
So tell us, who is John Cornfield? What have you done? I mean, what is this? What Sawmills? You built bits of it and all sorts. Give us a brief background on what you did here.
Built a studio. Well, I
That's
didn't build
brief
it.
as hell.
I didn't actually build it. It was already here.
Sure.
I just sort of rebuilt it a few times.
So when did Sawmills start? I mean, wasn't it the first residential?
73, 4,
That's when I was born.
something like that. No, I think Rockfield was the first, and it was either us or the Manor were the second.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which way around it is. Nobody seems to know, but it was something like that. And of course, Manor went years ago, so it's still these Rockfield and us. Rockfield is still doing exactly what we're doing here, frigging holiday lets, and the occasional studio session. So,
It's really
not that I'm annoyed about it or anything.
No. So I mean, I've noticed you're very much from an engineering and technical background.
Yeah.
So where did you learn that? Was it on the job? Was it on some kind of course, or what was the passion that drove you to get into sound and engineering?
I just enjoyed sound. I was always into sound, and I just loved the sound of good sounding records, which was hard to do. I built my own stereo when I was a kid, bits I found off the scrapyard. Get the violins out now. And no, literally, I found a one valve amp and a transistor amp on the scrapyard down the road from where we used to live, and kind of got them working and made my stereo. So I had valve one side and transistor the other.
So
Two
switch
homemade.
between them all?
No,
Or pre and post?
left and right.
So valve and solid state.
Yeah, it's a lot. One side was solid state, the other side was valve. Two homemade speakers, again, car speakers from the scrapyard. Seriously, I kid you not. I wish I still had it, actually.
Well, I understand
Like a museum
I
piece.
used to take. My dad used to bring back TVs
Yeah.
and stuff from the scrapyard.
Yeah.
I'd then take apart. And
Yeah.
I'd have all the resistors in different ohmage, and different compartments and capacitors, and I'd
That's
snip them all off.
OCD. That's OCD. That is.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah,
You're
Or
calling
actually,
me OCD.
or actually, it's actually CDO. The letters in the right order and all that. Yeah.
That comes with dyslexia and ADHD.
Yeah. Exactly. Hence what you're doing now,
Absolutely. Thank you.
and you're very good at it.
So where'd it go? I mean, you obviously. What was the first job you had, for example?
First job I had, my old man sent me off to work at this electronic workshop when I was about 12 or 13 because he got fed up with me blowing things up and driving cars and bikes around on the road and stuff. He got a bit fed up with that, so he thought he needed to occupy me, and he got me a job fixing TVs and PAs and electronics and stuff.
So it's all bench work and
Yeah.
oscillators and.
And physics and sound and stuff. Love it. Valves, transistors.
So where did the marriage with Sawmills happen? I mean, how did that come about?
Well, the whole thing, I kind of got expelled from a few educational establishments, and
Unsurprising.
I ended up as a shift working for ECC, English China Clay, and eventually managed to sort of get into doing an apprenticeship a couple of years later than everybody else. And there I met a guitarist in the band who heard I could fix things, and he brought his little electric Mistress flanger pedal up to me because all the shops said throw it in the bin. So I sat there and reverse engineered it and got it working for him, and he said, come to a gig for a laugh. I said, yeah, why not? So he came and picked me up in the van broke down, fixed the van, got to the gig, plugged their lighting rig in, blew the fuses in the building, fixed that. And then I was only supposed to be, I'm only supposed to be there ligging, you know, I was only supposed to be there coming for a laugh just to sort of see what they do. And they set their PA out and went, that sounds like shit. And looked at the way they had it connected. I said, no, pull all the plugs out, did this. And oh yeah, that sounds bad, doesn't it? And then they said, do you want to come to another gig? And that's kind of how it all started, really.
What was that band?
A band called Blue Movies. Who,
and what year are we talking about?
We're talking about 1980... Fuck knows, I don't know.
Early 80s, though.
Well, I would have been about 18, I was 19, 20, something like that. And I was born in 58, so you can work that one out.
So was that the live sound that you started off with?
Well, then I started getting more gigs and just using their little 8-channel amp. I hadn't been taught anything. I just doing it by hearing it and listening to it and going, well, that didn't sound right. And we eventually made up a little multi-core cable for their little 8-channel mixer. Then we got a 12-channel mixer. Then I built a bigger one, and then the band split up, and I bought the PA and built it up bigger, and so it went on.
Start on the live thing, really?
Yeah, it started live for me, yeah. And then Roach Studio. Then I started doing demos for people with 2 cassette decks.
I know that one.
So I had my little M&M 12:2 mixing desk, and I had that flanger that's down there, that MXR flanger, which I found in a second-hand shop. That was my effect. That's all I had.
So you're Mr. Flange?
That's all I had. I had that flanger, and that was it. I had nothing else. And then I picked up a delay pedal somewhere as well. But I used to just set up my multi-core into their garage. I'd set my desk in the kitchen with a pair of headphones and just stick them up in the garage, a couple of mattresses, record a backing track with 1 cassette deck, play that cassette deck back through the deck, record the vocals, onto the second one, finished demo. So it's really quick.
Thank you, Mr. Dolby, for the hiss.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. But, record it, Dolby, play it back Dolby Stretch, of course, to get a bit of fucking brightness out of things. But yeah, that was it. And then I got to know Martin Griffin, who was at Roach Studios.
Yeah.
He's one of the many ex-Hawkwind drummers.
Yeah.
The Spinal Tap drummer bit is based on Hawkwind.
We know actually the last interview we did was with
Yeah.
Clive Deemer, and he played with Hawkwind.
Yeah.
He was their 5th drummer.
Yeah, well,
It was
I
the
don't know where
disappearing
Martin
drummer.
was. Yeah, well, that's where the whole Spinal Tap thing. But anyhow, he had the studio at Roach, which was a 16-track, but it was just closed down, and it was going to become 24-track. And I knew Martin from the pub I used to drink in Roach, and and he started hearing about my PA thing going around, and the earthquake thing that I used to make happen at all the gigs I was doing. And
Sorry, expand on that.
Oh yeah, I'm just a bit of a bass junkie. Yeah, I've got to have subs, I've got to
Live
have
engineer.
big bass, love big bass. And he heard about this, so I got to know him, and then he said, well, bring it down to the studio and use the studio because it's empty at the moment, there's no gear in it. So I started recording the demos in there.
Right.
And Dennis, who now owns the Sawmills, was a Hawklord engineer, so he knew Dennis.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know he was an engineer.
So Dennis and Martin knew each other because Martin was the drummer on one of the Hawklord albums, and Dennis was the engineer on one of the Hawklord albums, and Dennis also went out doing live sound for Hawklords.
I didn't know Dennis was into
Oh,
sound.
here you go, yeah.
Well,
He
next time I
worked
see
up
him.
at Angel. He worked up at Angel for a long time as well, up in
didn't know
Soho.
that,
Yeah. So that's how the connection with Dennis came about. So then Dennis had a rain duck desk and a few bits and pieces, which we then put into Roach. Martin got an 8-track back in part exchange for some other gear, an 8-track Fos decks, and then I started running the studio there as well, and working for ECC and running the PA. So I was working 24/7 pretty much, and I'd take a couple of hours off every now and then to sleep, and then just carry on.
As we do.
And a lot of the sleep I was doing when I was working for English China Clay
Right.
in the attic. So it all kind of kicked off that way. So I wasn't taught anything. I just sort of did it.
But that's how it was, really, wasn't it? I mean, we've got a bunch of students here who are loving
Yeah.
learning about the whole thing. But
Yeah.
even in my day, I mean, you've got a decade on me, but even in my day, there wasn't such a thing as
No.
a music technology course.
No, it didn't
You
exist.
just did, and you learned on the job, and you tried to get in to certain areas, they just came along, didn't they?
Yeah, it's the traditional T-boy, start that way.
Well, you avoided a lot of that.
I missed all of that, yeah, because I just did it.
No, I was someone's bitch for a long time.
Yeah, I never had the pleasure or displeasure of that. Yeah, there you go.
They just believe that. It's not true.
That's right, you got to let them believe it, yeah. So yeah, it's all quite sort of tedious really, but that's how it happened, so.
So when did you actually establish yourself at the Sawmill?
Well, the Sawmills came about through the fact, everybody in Cornwall knows everybody in here, so it's such a small
I
community.
know my wife's Cornish.
Yeah, well, there you go. So Simon knew Simon Fraser, who had this place at the time, knew Martin, who then knew Dennis, and we all got together, and Dennis had that Trident console, which was already paid for but not used. It's another project that fell through. And Dennis knew, Martin knew that Dennis had that console, so he suggested, originally we were going to put it in a Roach, but then he suggested coming here and doing it here. So then we all got together and decided to form a cooperative, and that's what the Sawmills is now. So,
I mean, I guess it's kind of like it's the area, isn't it? I mean, why would bands come to here? I mean, it's blatantly
why not?
obvious.
Why not? Yeah.
And writing as well. I mean, a lot of writing happens here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because it's the most idyllic place. You just get away. You can make noise any time of day or night.
Yep.
John, didn't the lack of access put you guys off? You know, like, you got to get a boat. Like, is that going to work?
I was trying to, when I first started working down there, I was trying to find any fucking way of getting down here without having to walk, because I'm not keen on all this outdoor stuff. Yeah, no, but that was not an alternative. That was not a viable access time, because the farmer that owned the land at the top was absolutely no way going to let us come through there.
Right.
And at one point we even tried to buy it, and they told us to get fucked. But the farmer up there is renting it from somebody else, and if the other people who own it knew that we were using it now, they'd go fucking mental.
Oh.
So be careful. If he comes at you, go, get off my land with his shotgun. You're fucked.
I live in Somerset.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but yeah, the access thing was an issue, and I was trying to design all sorts of little buggy things to go on the railway line and all sorts of stuff. And
we were talking about it.
Yeah. Well, apparently back in the early 70s, they went to British Rail and asked if they could have one of those. And initially they said, I don't see a reason why not, get the equipment up and down. And it went to the committee, and one of the guys on the committee was in a band, and he went, you've got to be fucking joking. I mean, you know what's going to happen. He says, right, they're all going down there, middle of the night, pissed out the fucking brains. Let's go up the railway line. And of course you would. I would have fucking done it. And then, before you know it, you're up at Lost Withey, chasing the 125s up and down the fucking main line, aren't you? And that's exactly what would have happened.
Hitching on the back.
Yeah.
Hey!
And I would have been fucking driving it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's right. So it's probably a good idea we didn't.
Motorbikes, speed freaks.
Yeah, because you can't get them off. You can't get them off the track that easily. Those things. You know,
Heavy, aren't
if
they?
a train comes, you're fucked. So I was riding my bike up and down here a few times. I had a couple of accidents with that motorbike.
What, along the sleepers?
Yeah, and I had a couple of issues with that. So I stopped doing that. Then I tried riding across the top there, and there's a stile halfway along. I don't know if you've seen it. You saw that today, just that stile. Well, getting over that was a bit tricky, and I took it out. Thinking, oh, it's smart, just took the fucking thing out. And then by the time I went home, it had been put back again, so that didn't work. So then I just realised that actually the walk is the only thing that's keeping me alive, because otherwise I'm sitting in there for 14 to 16 hours a day vegetating.
We know all about that.
Yeah, and it was actually the only thing, and I quite enjoyed it in the end, so I quite liked the walk. But yeah, it took a long time to get around that one.
So obviously bands started coming,
Yep.
but which band really sort of put it on the map, would you say?
Well, it was had been on the map in the early days. I don't know if you've done any of your research into what the early bands with Steel Span and all that lot, and apparently Sad Cafe had been down here and all that lot. So I mean, that it was kind of happening, but then it stopped.
Before the Trident went in.
This is before the Trident, yeah, and the Sound Techniques was in. And then Tony left to go to London to follow his dream of orchestral stuff, Tony Cox.
Yeah.
And Jerry Boyce disappeared off up and started up Livingston Studios with somebody, I can't remember.
So that was kind of the early part of it.
Yeah.
But that set the way, I guess.
Yeah, and then Simon was working here as an engineer, and when Tony and Jerry left, Simon and his family bought it as a family home, and Simon just had the studio there as his toy in the basement, basically. And it's then when Dennis and Martin came in that we kicked it back up the arse again and got it working again. So, and that's when we put the Trident in.
So who have you had in?
Oh God, you're going to stretch the brain cells now.
Well, we know the obvious. Oasis.
Well, the Oasis and Supergrasses and Robert Plant and Muse and Ride and Stone Roses and Reef and Newton Faulkner, yeah. God, it goes on. Yeah, look,
it really does, doesn't it?
Quite a lot, yeah.
So what was the formula? What do you think attracted people here? I mean, you were engineering through that whole period, right? And producing, yeah?
Yeah, well, the production thing came a bit later on.
So how did that happen? So what we're talking timescale-wise, through the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of New Model Army.
Thunder and Constellation.
Yeah.
One of my favourite albums of all time.
That's probably the big kick-off point for me.
Vagabonds, you engineered that, right?
Yeah, all that. That's probably the big kick-off point, really. That's where it really started to turn the corner here. And then obviously with all Supergrass, and then that whole Britpop thing came around, and we kind of had it sort of cornered here, really.
Blue Tones as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Blue Tones as well, yeah.
So was it just because, I guess, that someone had recorded here, so it was like, well, where did you record that? We're going to go there.
Well, I mean,
Is that how it works,
I think
or?
most bands, when they're deciding where they want to go stuff, I think they just look at the record and see where it's recorded, don't they? I mean, that's how it works, I believe. I mean, all the advertising we've ever done has never really turned in any results, I don't think.
No, you just get holiday makers.
Yeah, we just get fucking holiday makers, yeah.
No, it's got to be word of mouth for sure. It's always
It is word of mouth,
it's
and then
business
and as record
necessities.
companies just look at where things are done, and the bands look at where it's done, who's done it, and that's how it works, isn't it? I mean, it's not advertising. It's, you know, I mean, you're only as good as your last record, basically. So
Well, your last one was shit, so.
exactly, that's why I'm still driving around in the
Sitting there working
2000.
with me.
That's why I'm in a 2003 fucking fucked up bloody Mercedes
joking,
Sprinter
of
that's
course.
falling apart. But yeah. So yeah, that's kind of that was the turning point, and then it just kind of went mental. Really, it's great. It was good.
It is
And
good.
I think what it was really is what we had going here with myself and Annie, who was the cook. We just made a really nice homely atmosphere here. Whereas I noticed a lot of studios I went into were very kind of sterile.
Austere, yeah.
Yeah, austere, and it's like, you know, don't come in here with muck on your shoes, and I know you can't smoke in here or you can't fart in here or anything like that. Whereas it was just very homely and very laid back, and we didn't treat anybody like superstars. I mean, the Stone Roses were a classic example of that, because we'd had, when they were booked in here, we had all sorts of studios ringing us up and saying, don't fucking have them in, they'll wreck the fucking place. And we went, oh, don't worry about it, we'll be okay. And they were fucking good as gold.
So,
And
hang on.
you know why that is? Because if you treat people like rock stars, they act like fucking rock
Yeah,
stars. And
like
we
kids.
didn't, we
Treat them like
didn't,
kids,
we
they'll act
didn't
like kids.
treat anybody
Yeah.
like a rock star. You just treat them like people. They act like people. And everybody found that quite refreshing and a bit of a change. So
With-
that was the vibe here.
With Stone Roses, was Fool's Gold recorded here?
Yeah. Fool's Gold and What the World's Waiting For. That was John Leckie and
So you had John Leckie here, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you worked with John Leckie.
Yeah, I worked with John
You were
Leckie a lot.
engineering, he was producing. You
Yeah.
worked with him a lot. What albums did you work with John Leckie with?
Ride and Dukes of Stratosphere.
Really?
Yeah, which of course was XTC.
Yeah.
That was fucking brilliant. That was such a lot of fun. That was a laugh, because that was a piss take album. It was a piss take of all things 60s, and Andy Partridge is a fucking comedian. He's a very funny man.
Explain Andy Partridge for those who don't
Andy
know.
Partridge is the main guy in XTC. I don't know if you know what XTC is. If you don't know XTC,
I
then you'll
guess
have to
I'm
do
a
your
little
do your
too
own.
young for that.
Yeah, you probably are way too young. But yeah, XTC, classic band. Really, really good band. Very clever musically as well.
Pushing the
Very-
boundaries.
Yeah, very pushing the boundaries. But this Dukes of Stratosphere was a sideline project that they did for laugh. It was a piss take. It was this kind of Spinal Tap of 60s music. and it was treated as such when it was recording it. So it was just trying to find every single fucking cliche in the book. And it was just hilarious, the things that were going on. We were sawing up bits of wood, throwing things in the swimming pool.
Can you
all
name a
sorts
couple
of
of albums that maybe they should check out for that? Because that would be an interesting
Well, it's just
one
Sonic
to listen.
Sunspot. There is only the one album.
one album.
There is the one album. It's called Sonic Sunspot, which is spelt P-S-O-N-I-C, Sunspot.
Even that's a piss take.
Yeah, exactly. It is, the whole thing is. But yeah, that was another classic seminal. That album's very, all the American bands that come over here are like, oh my God, Dukes of Stratosphere was there. Yeah, that's
Funny
an
how-
all-time favourite album, is how funny it goes, yeah.
Sometimes the
Yeah.
Americans just go, I love that.
Yeah, well, they do. Well,
So,
you got history going back more than 300 years? Fucking hell.
I know we're going to have a question and answers,
Yeah.
but obviously some people are going to want to know, what was it like working with Noel and Liam?
Well,
You don't have to be honest, you just have to be politically correct.
I'd been on quite a long run of sessions when Definitely Maybe came around, and I wasn't really aware of who the fuck Oasis were, because they weren't really.
No,
There was a little bit of a buzz in the press. There was a bit of a buzz in the press about
Yeah.
it, but it was like, who the fuck are they? And they came down here. It's the third time they recorded it with Mark Coyle, who was their live sound guy producing it, and Angeli Dutt from Battery Studios engineering
So
it.
Mark was producing that, yeah.
Yeah, Mark was producing it. Well, they had two other producers,
Yeah.
which didn't work out because they scrapped the album twice. So, and they only kept Supersonic, I think was the only thing kept from the previous recording. They came down to record it, and Angeli had worked in.
That was done in Mono Valley.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Champagne Supernova. No,
Yeah,
Supersonic.
one of those. Yeah, one
Yeah,
of those.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Oasis fan. And
Carry on. Put some meat on the bone here.
But they came down and recorded the album, and you know, it was the third time round, so they had 10 days to do it. The record company says, "Right, you've got 10 days. You've fucked around long enough. Get it done."
So like 10 days to record Definitely Maybe.
Yeah, and so they'd get on with it. But Angeli couldn't understand the whole concept of the split console. So I engineered the first 4 or 5 days of recording it. And by then she kind of got the hang of it and they were into overdub. So I said to Dylan, who was the trainee here at the time, said, "Can you take over now? I want a few days off." I said, this rubbish isn't going anywhere. I said, "There's a bunch of hopers playing New Seekers and T-Rex and Beatles covers." I said, "I've heard it all before, it's going nowhere." And went home.
And it went massive.
So yeah. But you know.
Fair. There's much more, you know, projects I'd rather be involved in than Oasis.
Well, exactly.
So what was next?
What was next after that?
Supergrass. I love Supergrass.
Supergrass, well, that was kind of ongoing. That was before that, wasn't it?
Oh, of course it was, yeah.
First album's before that, then
Yeah.
the second album, and third album. And yeah, Supergrass was great. I mean, that was a bit of an in-house project initially. It was Sam Williams, who we also had a lot of history with here. He moved to Oxford when Tony Cox moved to Oxford, when he left here. And he saw this band at the time called Theodore Supergrass playing in a pub in Oxford, and came down and said, "Dennis, we've got to record these boys. We've got to put them in." Got them on a production deal and did the first demos, which was caught by the
That was
fuzz.
on a production deal?
That was on a
Right.
production deal. And Sam then punted it all around, and of course, the rest of the decision, they got signed pretty quickly. But EMI didn't want to honour our production agreement because we'd had it drawn up by some two-bit music lawyer in Exeter who knew nothing about it. And EMI went and looked through the contract and says, "Well, it's not worth the fucking paper it was written on." So it kind of got taken. It kind of got taken away. But we took the view that, well, they're coming back here to record it properly, being paid for by EMI, and we had a long relationship with them after that. So we just put that down to inexperience and moved on basically. So.
Gaz's new music's great.
I know, it's brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm loving it. And then, of course, we have to mention Muse.
yeah, well, another.
So didn't you produce Absolution?
No, well, yeah, kind of co-produced it with Paul Reeve.
Yeah.
I mean, the first album, I didn't get it on the stuff that they were doing here with Paul, because I was away with Supergrass doing something else, and Paul was in here doing the original demos.
Yeah.
And Dennis played them to me, and I was like, I didn't quite get it. I said, yeah, there didn't seem to be anything really
So as a three-piece,
outstanding going on here.
three-piece, did it
Yeah,
not
yeah.
have that full sound at that time? Or
No, not the early demos. And then I was up in London Masters, and Dennis gave me a call and said, they're playing Shepherd's Bush Empire tonight, supporting Bush. And it's an MTV being filmed night. Come along and I'll check it out. So I was all right. So I stopped off on the way home. And then I got it. It was like, fucking hell. I said, "Dennis, you haven't captured this fucking band. That's the fucking problem." Because, I mean, live, it was just like, the three-piece live thing was just like, fucking hell,
it's a
man.
whirlwind, isn't it? It's
Oh, it
just-
was nuts.
Yeah.
And that's when it all started with me, and then I got involved with them and started doing some recording then. So, yeah. And that's gone pretty big, isn't it?
There you go. The murder will say all of that, yeah. And we've got some very big Muse fans here, Stell. I know.
Hang on.
It's a Supergrass track.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, man.
Cut that.
Hang on. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of something.
On TV.
Can I give you a call back, mate? Yeah, I'm being filmed as well, so. So wave to the camera. There you go. Right. Yeah, I'll give you a call in a minute, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, but it's all good for Monday. Ashes can do it. Well done. Back. Catch you later.
That
Back.
was Matt David.
No, that's yeah.
Right, rewind.
That's all right. Leave it in.
Actually, it's a good point because really we need to go to questions and answers.
Yeah.
So, give us some hands. Questions? Yes, Joe.
Out of everything that you've kind of produced and recorded, what would you say that you're most proud of? You know, if someone's asking, what's your biggest achievement as a producer? So.
Maybe I'm yet to do it.
Good answer.
It is a difficult one. I mean, I do get asked that question quite a lot, and I find it's very difficult to answer that because, you know, it's just constantly evolving. Everything's evolving, and I always think I've yet to do that record that I
Right.
really think, yeah, that was fucking great. I do think if you get to the point where you think, yeah, that was fucking great, it's time to stop.
Right.
Because what else you've got
Well, there you go.
to strive for, you
Times
know
of
what I mean?
release, so that- yeah, exactly the same. There's
Yeah.
always more to learn. There's
There always,
better
always,
to
always
reach,
is, yeah. I mean, you never ever know it all. You could always learn new tricks from anybody coming in. Yep.
Dan?
Which Newton Faulkner album did you record?
I didn't.
Oh,
It was done here.
What was recorded here?
I've no idea. I wasn't on it. That was Tommy, I think.
It was Tommy.
Yeah.
How did you go from like going to a scrap store and picking up those speakers and making a stereo to like making that in there? Like,
Yeah, good question. Sheer fucking tenacity, basically. And just wanting
yeah, but how?
more sound and more bass.
Bass head.
Bass head, yeah, total fucking bass junkie. Yeah, just wanting more, and just self-driven, just motivation.
Did you like fund this yourself or?
I've never been able to fund anything. All the money I earn goes down my throat, or did.
But there's
Beer.
there's funding financially, and there's funding in blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of
And
blood,
there was a
sweat.
lot of passion going into it.
Oh yeah, a
I'm
lot
sure.
of blood, sweat. and
Another
tears,
question,
How
Sam.
was your transition from doing live sound and then going straight into being sat in the studio all day?
Well, I didn't go straight into. There's been quite a long crossover, and it's remained. I mean, the live thing sort of disappeared a bit, but I was still doing a lot of live stuff while I was doing studio stuff, and I kind of two to me just are one anyway.
And you're doing more live now, isn't
But I've gone back to doing a lot more live stuff. I've been out doing a few tours again recently, which I'm thinking, I'm a bit too old for that
You're not
whole
hurt now?
tour bus thing. Yeah, and
hurts me now, I'm
humping
only 14.
humping PAs around. Yeah, fuck that shit. So I've stopped doing that again. Well, I've not stopped, but I still got this fucking great PA, and I'm just sitting there
Someone
thinking,
you
I've
built
got to
yourself?
get. Yeah, it's all homemade again now. Old habits die hard.
Is it basic?
Wait, Dave.
Very.
So how long did it take you to be able to record in the studio in there?
How long did it take to build? 30 years. Still
ongoing
building it.
process.
Still building it. It's forever evolving, always changing. You know, always adding to it, modifying, or now taking away from it a bit these days. But
Do you feel like you'll never be completely finished? There'll always be something else.
oh, it's never finished. No studios.
technology
Yeah,
evolves, you'll never
There's always
be
something
done.
new. Yeah. It changes. My studio at home's worse than this. Mine is one big workshop studio.
Right.
It changes every session. Something changes in it.
John's actually active in building new studios for people, and I love the studios because they're like substance over style.
Yeah.
So we went to a modern world, and it's very beautiful. You've got the Mach 1 design, and it's all lush and it looks pretty, and it's a great studio. Don't get me wrong, but the studios that John builds, are
Gaffer
just-
tape and string.
yeah, and serious gear. It's like
Yeah.
it's like. Don't look that way. Your peripheral
No,
vision
don't.
important. It's like
Mustn't look at the
sound,
finish.
Sound. It's like shutting your eyes when you're EQing. It's just like
Yeah.
As
Shut
you
your
should.
eyes to the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm going to go and have a listen to a set of speakers that
Yeah.
friend's been building with you.
Yes. Well, no, he's building them, but I gave him the kick up the ass to get on and do it.
They have vortices
Yeah.
in order to get a linear response from the
Yep.
driver, so the
Yep.
push and the pull are
It's
the
the
same.
same. Yeah.
So you get linear response from your monitors, but they look like air filters.
That's
in a
exactly
car.
what they look like.
Three
yeah.
of them stacked on top of each other.
Four.
Four. Massive bass.
I'll show you the
obviously.
picture. I'll show you the
That's
picture.
cool.
Show the picture, but
How do you engine in something like that too?
Well, I didn't. He did.
Oh,
I just gave him the kick
I
up
think
the ass to do
his,
it.
his mate's actually a bigger nerd than John is.
Oh, totally. He's a complete total nut nerd. Yeah.
I was just going to say, is it when you like first started out? Was it something you always wanted to do, or was it
No.
something you just like grew, like your love for it just grew? As
It just happened really. It's, I never had any goal at all. I was pretty aimless. I still am really. I was never focused in one direction. I just kind of lived from day to day and jumped from one thing to another. And
You recorded One Direction.
no, thankfully no. Well, actually no, that would have been nice, but yeah.
Really?
But for the fucking
yeah.
money. I could have got a newer van then.
Your van's alright, it's a Merc.
Yeah, it's a fucking meh.
It's a fucking Merc.
Yeah.
You've got a nice little ramp to go back for your wheelchair.
Yeah, ready for that one. Yeah. get your own fucking ramp.
Yes, Dave, I got a landing. I'm all right.
Yeah.
Do you play as well?
No. Never in public.
So what do you play in private then?
A fool.
All's gold.
No, I did start learning to play guitar, but just I didn't have a teaching or anything, but I just got the guitar and started messing about with it, and you know, sort of knocked out a few chords, played a bit of Smoke on the Water, and we had a band. I made a guitar, my first guitar. I built it out of bits of welding wire and clevis pins and ceramic cartridge elements as the pickups.
So, ladies and gentlemen, C60.
It was sicker than C60's guitar, I'll tell you. But it did make a noise, and the amp was
Of one string.
the motor out of a Dansette record player with the valve stage from it and a power amp stage from a radio built valve car radio. So I had a battery charger.
Valve
built
car
in.
radio.
So I had a motor spinning
Petra.
inside this thing. I had a battery charger in it and the 12-volt vibrator.
I
so it
want
was
a valve car
oh,
radio.
so brilliant, brilliant. It just made the most horrendous fucking noise. But yeah, I taught my brother how to basically shape a few chords and stuff, and then I kind of discovered motorbikes and women at that point, and it all went out the window.
Fast
Yeah.
vehicles and fast women.
Yeah,
Hang on a minute, Dave. Let me just say, it's an interesting point because, you know, when I'm teaching production to the production students here, I'm always harping on about it's really important to be able to talk to musicians, understand the language, read music is a real big bonus. I'm actually eating my words since I've been talking to John because listen to the records he's made.
I can't do any of that.
He just tells them to play.
Yeah, I just get on with it. Yeah, I leave the music to the musicians.
There's a bit of both. Obviously, I
Yeah.
found it easier to be able to read music and talk, and especially with strings.
Yeah, I do find it frustrating that I can't read scores and I can't play anything and I don't know anything about chord structures.
But you can hear it.
But I can hear when it's right and when it's not right.
That's the important thing. isn't it?
And my thing is more of a performance-based thing than a technically, musically correct thing.
But it
you know what I mean.
shows through the records, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
just that performance. It's capturing. We had a good conversation about this,
Yeah.
about capturing.
Capturing the
performance.
moment,
It's the
yeah.
most important
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Technology can only patch up what they did wrong.
Yeah, and it can be very frustrating when that performance doesn't come. Because then I'm fucked. Because I don't know what to do.
So in the studio, you're working with a band. How do you get that performance out of them? I mean, no, you can't get it. They have to do it. But how do you encourage? Or
Well, you just got to allow it. You've got to
Drop
allow
from
it to
above,
happen.
mate.
You've got to make a situation that's conducive for that to happen, and that you just learn by experience. Really, I mean, there's no point in having a go at them. And go right now, do the take, because that obviously isn't going to work. You just got to kind of let it happen. Be very relaxed, be very chilled, but also try and install some sort of urgency without making it seem urgent. if you
well,
know
it's
what
like
I
the
mean.
whole thing
Yeah.
working to the budget from the label, isn't it? It's like you want to let them know that the record's going to happen, but not put any pressure on.
Yeah.
So I think Greg said something quite interesting. He said, well, I don't ever tell them when they're on schedule, because if I tell
God,
them
no.
they're behind schedule, they'll panic.
Yeah.
And if I tell them they're ahead of schedule, they'll just
Yeah.
get wrecked.
Yeah. we
So
don't-
it's
Well, I think that now that the budgets are a lot more limited, I think everybody knows that they haven't got endless time, so they have to get on with it. And I think it's actually better for the performance point of view.
well, I think it is that
I mean,
urgency.
when you had sort of 12, 16 weeks to make a fucking album, it's like, the fuck do you do for all that time? I mean, how can you waste that much time?
A lot of drugs.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens basically. A lot of booze and a lot of drugs and a lot of not doing anything. And that can get a bit soul destroying. And sometimes I think you can over-polish things by having too much time. You end up taking all the life out of it because you've got so much time to think, we'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And it might become more in time, more in tune, but the soul's gone out of it. Whereas you quite often find like the first, second, third take, it's there.
I find
That's
the second
it.
or third, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Or
Well, there's that
sometimes-
bathtub curve, isn't there?
Yeah,
There's
the
that, you know,
bathtub. Yeah, you got it.
It's not bathtub, but you know.
Yeah.
All that distribution.
That is
goes
really
on.
important.
It
And I
is,
think
yeah.
that's coming back more and more, isn't it? Getting that performance. And I think there is a backlash against the
Yeah.
absolute correct pop. Tuning, timing, everything, quantized, everything. Oh. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I've chosen not to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I hate
Pay
it.
me any amount of money, I'm not going to do it.
No,
And I have refused the jobs.
yeah.
I'd
But
rather
occasionally you have to do it.
I'd rather work with Matt Wheezy and make albums that are serious fun to make and great performances.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it is. But you know, occasionally you have to do that. I mean, when they go, Go on then.
Is there an album that you wish you would have worked on, or a band that you wish you could have worked with?
Oh,
Game changer.
there's one I turned down, not because I wanted to, because I had to. That could have improved my financial status. Let's put it that way. It was this band Coldplay. Right.
See,
I'll just leave the stage.
I still got the cassette demos of it actually, and as soon as I heard the demos, I was like, "That's going to be a hit." I could tell it was.
Parachute's album was
the
amazing.
amazing. First album, yeah.
My favourite album.
And I had a meeting with them, and it all went well because Chris is from Exeter anyway, isn't he?
Yeah.
So.
John, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you about the future of the recording industry? These guys have aspirations to work.
Well,
Which direction is it going?
that's up to these guys.
Can you foresee the next 15, 20 years?
I think I'm hoping there's going to be a little bit of a backlash against the whole program pop X Factor bollocks thing that's going on now, and it's going to go back
It's happening.
Well, exactly, and I think that from a lot of the young bands I'm working with now, I'm hopeful that it's all but over, all that shit, because there's some really, really talented young artists coming up through at the moment that can seriously play and write seriously good songs. So it's up to you guys to basically do it. So
You find that with the industry, I mean,
don't go down that pop route,
no,
please.
don't do that. Internet, obviously.
Yeah,
There's a pie. There's more slices now. isn't
yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the artists I work with are making a great living, but they're not a household name.
No.
They're loving what they do, and I'm liking that.
Yeah.
You can still go and record. They can come with me and record
Yeah.
here or Mono Valley or a nice residential. Have a great time. Go
Yeah.
out, kick their stuff around Europe, and yeah.
Yeah,
still make a
yeah. I
great
think
living.
from the band's point of view, I think you've got a lot more control over your own destiny now, and it's up to you to do the whole marketing thing. And I think you can. I think you can do it. The whole sort of social media stuff that's going on. I think you can self-market, and I don't think we need all the fucking bankers up there driving it anymore. And the more we can get the bankers out of the equation, I think the better it's going to be. And if we could do that globally across the whole economy, everything on the planet, great.
Hang on a minute. What time is it?
Bankers,
We
sorry.
can do religion in an hour. Politics
Sorry.
is-
No, sorry. Yeah.
Can we have a massive round of applause, please?
Thank you.
Of course, I'm sure John won't mind if you've got any other questions that you want to ask him. Not now, because he's got to go. Because
Yeah.
he's really busy. But tomorrow he's going to be. If you want to have a chat with him, it's fine. I think Tarrant's got a handle on the studio now, right?
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he allowed to keep it open a bit later tonight?
I'm always on the end of the phone.
Yeah, is
If
it
I
okay?
give you my number.